everyone. Today we're gonna be talking to one of our MFA students. Her name is Teal Francis. Teal was born and raised in Central Oregon and attended to Colorado College for her undergraduate degree in studio art. After graduating, she lived in Seattle and worked as a print studio assistant at Pratt Fine Arts Center. She then moved to Reno for her Masters of Fine Arts program at UNR, where she taught printmaking and drawing, worked as a lab technician in the printmaking studio, and as a graduate assistant in the School of the Arts events office, and also organized the Printmakers Conspiracy, a community group of over 50 printmakers. She has been an artist in residence at Art Farm in Nebraska and the Black Rock High Rock National Conservation Area in Nevada. Her primary medium is print, especially relief and screen printing, though she has recently expanded into wood, paper mâché, plaster, and fabric sculpture. She has a small line of hand-printed goods she sells at craft fairs and in stores. Teal is a graduate of the MFA program as of 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to invite her in to our Instagram here. Hi!
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
Sweet. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
very
you so much for
happy
having me.
to have you here with us. Teal, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm feeling good it's exciting to be at the end of, sort of the end of 3 years of work, so that's
Yeah,
exciting.
congratulations.
Thanks, yeah.
Must feel good.
Yes, it does, definitely.
All right, let's start from the beginning.
Cool.
Where it all started. When did you realize you were an artist?
So I've always been pretty creatively and visually oriented. When I was a kid, I would stay inside during recess with one of my best friends, and we'd build animals out of old cracker and cereal box containers. And I've always spent a lot of time drawing. Probably the peak of my popularity in life was in second grade when I could draw all these animals, and all the other students would ask me to draw their favorite animal.
Oh, sweet.
Um, yeah, and then um, going into college, I didn't totally know I wanted to pursue visual arts. It was one of several interests. And then as I took more courses, it became clear that that's what I wanted to do, especially my senior year when I took printmaking for the first time and really fell in love with that medium.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that in your bio, you have that you have some prints available for purchase because I have one. So,
Yeah,
and I love
awesome.
them.
You had one of my favorite ones.
Good. Well, I have read your MFA thesis, and in it you mention a story that you argue it's very close to your practice as an artist. Can you tell everyone about it and how it aligns with you as an artist?
Yeah, definitely. So this is a story from this 1970s animated film that's called The Point. And the story and the songs in the film are by Harry Nilsson, and it was animated by Fred Wolf. And it's this really fantastic story about this boy and his dog, who live in this village called the Pointed Village, and everything has a point. The buildings have points, the people have points on the top of their heads. But this boy is born with a rounded head, so he has no point. So he and his dog are kicked out of the village and banished to the Pointless Forest, which is this forest outside of town that no, none of the villagers have ever been to. And so they go on this great adventure in the forest, and they meet all kinds of people who live different sorts of lives than the villagers. One of my favorite encounters they have is with this character called the Rock Man, who's this very chill dude who's all made of rock. And so, kind of throughout this adventure, they come to realize that this forest isn't pointless at all. It's filled with all these different beings that have like different ways of living life, and their lives are all meaningful, and they all find contentment, and that You don't have to have a point on your head to have a point in life. It's kind of the moral of the story. So at the end of their adventure, they kind of wind up back in the village. The forest kind of leads them back, and then they tell this to the villagers, who kind of, as this dawns upon them, all the points on all their heads turn rounded. So it's this really great kind of children's tale. It has really wonderful visuals, like colors. The animation is wonderful too. And as a kid, I was really into this story and film. And now it really connects to kind of the major theme of my work, which is how our societally based conceptions of the world around us, how those understandings hugely interpret and sometimes limit our uh, understanding of the world around us and kind of how we interpret situations.
Yeah. When I read it, I was so enamored with it. I love children's book, and I think I mentioned to you on my feedback for your thesis that you should take a look at The Little Prince, because it also has, a big moral
Yeah,
behind it, you know?
yeah, totally.
And growing up, like reading it as a child, it was totally a different perspective than when I read as a teenager, and then when I read after knowing the background of the author. And some of these children's books, they're very, very valuable in many ways, throughout our lives. And it
Yeah,
was
I think so.
interesting, yeah, to
Yeah, and they
see that
have,
you had the same kind of relationship with it.
yeah, totally. And they often have those kind of like layered meanings that, that can mean one thing to a kid who has a different way of interpreting and a different thing to an
Yeah,
adult. And I
yeah.
feel like some of them are more free in that way because anything's possible in children's books, the way they're based and structured.
Kind of like art.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
viewer has a huge role in it.
Yeah, exactly.
So simplicity and playfulness are essential parts of your oeuvre. And can you tell us more about these two aspects of your work? And while you're doing that, I'll share some images of your work with everybody.
Oh, yeah, awesome. So yeah, simplicity is a huge part of my work. A lot of my prints have just a few elements in them, and like white background parts, and then my sculptural and installation pieces are also rather simplistic in the number of elements or how they're placed. So yeah, simplicity is a really big part of my work. I'm really interested in simplicity because it allows for this kind of visual accessibility that's really important to me. I really like the fact that with simple works, a person viewing the piece can really get a handle on the entirety of the piece and kind of not feel that like there's too overwhelmed or too much going on to get a sense of what the piece is. So that's really
Mhm.
important. I would say the second part of simplicity that's important in my work is in relation to kind of complexity. I feel like our society is really oriented towards complexity, just in terms of the jobs we esteem the most are those that have, complex titles and are people who are in charge of a lot of things. And we kind of revere people who are, or like being really busy and having a lot you have to do is something we think
Yeah.
of as like, oh, that must be an important person.
Hmm.
So kind of through creating these pieces that are more simplistic, I can kind of resist that societal narrative in a way and forefront the idea that simplicity is something that's really important. And often those are the things in life that are the most important, you know.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, because here, and also playfulness,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. So play is another really important part of my work. And it's really grounded in this idea of play as something that's open ended and really open to possibilities. Play doesn't have kind of a definite conclusion. It's something we engage with and not knowing how it will end up. And we're really open to things when we're in a playful mode in a way that we aren't in a lot of other
Hmm.
areas in our lives. I really like thinking about this in terms of like how we relate to children or animals. You can get down on the floor and play with a dog, and it's totally normal. It's an acceptable behavior to have, but in a lot of other areas in our lives, that's not really the case.
Yeah.
And so kind of this idea of playfulness really allows for freedom and this openness that isn't possible in a lot of other areas in our lives.
Yeah. And I really like that because, in line with the playfulness and simplicity, you in a way, with that in mind and with that paradox into our society and to where we live into our everyday lives, you create this parallel universe, right? With these beings and these trees and mountains, and in a way you transport the viewer to a lighter, funnier and cuter place.
Yeah.
Is that your intention when you create these universes?
Yeah, definitely. My intention is, yeah, trying to create this world that is playful and fun and kind of cute and has all those different elements to it. And the reason I'm interested in that is because this world has those attributes. It kind of acts as a safe space in that way. It's like a place that invites people to feel comfortable. And because of that comfortability, they're more open to things. And from that kind of safe and comfortable vantage point, they can then kind of question. Um, I guess being in that comfortable state of mind allows them to question things in a way you can't be if you're not kind of sure what's going on or are feeling insecure
Yeah.
about things around you.
Question your own reality, like why
Yeah,
do I have to be in this stressful mode? Why do I have to
exactly.
like I like that. I like that a lot, that transportation. And I think art is a really good way of showing people that they don't have to live in a state that they normally are at. And I think your work really does transport us in a very positive way to a happier place.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the goal. Yeah, I would say one other part of it too is like this kind of idea of semi-ambiguity that's in my work. A
Yep.
lot of it is these created scenes of different animals and like shapes, and you're not exactly sure like what the situation
Yeah.
is, how you would define it, like what they're doing specifically, or even sometimes like what exactly the type of animal is, or like what the shape is itself.
Yeah.
And that is like part of what um, I'm interested in, like creating that ambiguity so it allows for people to kind of expand beyond their typical ways of interpreting or defining things. If you can't define it in a way you're used to, then that opens doors to kind of what does this mean to me, or how can I think about this in a different way?
And how can you access your imagination that we lose a lot when we
Yeah.
become adults, right? When you
Yes.
show a kid, something, they're like, they have all these ideas that we, as an adult, we're like, whoa, you're able to tap into this space that we don't use anymore. And your work kind of opens that door for us to go there, for us to allow ourselves to use our imagination to understand, like why a goat is wearing a sweater.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's what I'm shooting for.
Wonderful. Tell us, one main artist that has influenced you and your work.
Yeah, so one of my favorite artists for the past couple of years is Chris Johansen.
Mm-hmm.
He's an artist who was kind of originally based out of the Bay Area. He came out of the punk and skate scene of the 90s. And a lot of his older work are these really great paintings of people and with text that are kind of really odd and off the wall and really humorous and make really interesting commentaries about society. He also had this really cool exhibition at the Hammer Museum in LA that was this installation of a kind of move between two-dimensionality and three-dimensionality, which is
Uh-huh.
something I'm also really interested in. It had this kind of mountain piece and then this road that was kind of up in the air that connected it to this kind of diorama like building, and then he had kind of figures and cars moving around. And it also had these kind of more traditional two-dimensional paintings on the wall.
Huh.
um, so it was a really interesting show. And then some of his recent work also has been these really cool handmade furniture pieces he's been making with like found pieces of wood that are really beautiful.
Oh, my dog. Mel, no. Working from home.
Right, yes, I
Joy.
know the feeling exactly. There have been many times where my cat has come into the video, so.
Pets. Oh, that's so cool. I'm gonna check it out for sure. I really want to see that exhibition.
Yeah,
I hope
yeah,
they
it's
have
really cool.
some photos online.
Yes, yeah,
And
there's on the Hammer website, there's a bunch of them.
they are okay.
Yeah,
That's good. Good to know. Chris Johansen.
yes.
All right. And have you been creating during this time of isolation?
Yeah, I have. So initially I was finishing up some of the pieces that will be in my thesis exhibition.
Mhm.
So they're sculptural, they're paper mache and plaster pieces, and then they're kind of sort of flat, sort of dimensional pieces that are made out of foam core and wood that are kind of like paper dolls and they stand upright on stands.
Kind of like that one.
Those are the 3D kind of type ones.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
think I remember you showed me in your studio
yeah,
when we were allowed to see each other.
yes, exactly. Yes, I think we did. Um, yeah, and then there are also some flat, like 2D elements, and then some soft sculpture, like screen printed fabric pieces too.
Fabric, like
Yeah,
cushion.
so I was working on kind of finishing up those, and then after I finished most of those, I was working on some photographic pieces with those, kind of placed in different places, outside and around town, of course, places where no one was. Which I had a lot of fun doing that. And that was something I'd planned to do even before we kind of moved to social distancing.
Yeah,
So it was fun. I was glad I was still able to do that part of it as kind
that's
of I envisioned it.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And before we go, I wanted to, well, first, if anybody that is watching would like to ask anything to Teal, please go ahead and type away, and I'll ask her. But tell us about your characters in place, which is tiny. Let me see if I can change. Yeah, there you go. So tell us about this part of your this is exhibition.
Yeah. So this is the other main thing I've been working on since we moved to, or since the campus closed rather. I initially in my exhibition had this interactive part in the gallery, and I kind of changed it to be this socially distanced interactive piece. And so the essentially this is a piece where people create paper characters and then place them somewhere and then send me a photo of these pieces. So there were kind of two ways people were doing it. One way was I mailed out this printed piece that had some characters I drew on it, and people could either use those or create their own characters. And then some people were also just saw the call that I put on social media and created their own characters without receiving the piece in the mail. And so I've been kind of collecting these photos and posting them all on my Instagram stories and then also on my website. And it's been a super fun interactive project.
It's been so
Um,
cool to see it
yeah,
evolve.
it's been, people have done some really cool things.
I
I've been
know.
really surprised and really loving all the images I've gotten. And it's definitely still ongoing. So if anyone's
Yeah.
interested, there's instructions on my Instagram. So I would
And
love.
can you tell everybody what's your website so they can also see some of the past images that were
Yeah, my
shared?
website is tealfrancis.com.
And how do you spell your last name?
Francis.
Okay,
Yeah, and they're all on the homepage. So yeah.
sweet. So everybody can see it and partake on this wonderful project. We do have one question. What's your favorite character or piece you've created during your MFA?
Oh man, that's hard to answer. Um, gosh, character or piece. I'm gonna answer character maybe because piece is harder.
Okay.
Plus, they kind of blend. Some of them I use
Yeah, yeah.
repeatedly. Yeah, so I would say one of my favorite characters I created was in 2008, or sorry, 2018. I did a series. There were these woodcut and screen printed collages that were these personified animals wearing clothing on the, and I installed them directly on the wall. And there was one of these characters that was a bat that was probably my favorite. He was kind of this like little hunched over bat guy. And in one version of the character, he had this shirt that said "Donut Lord" on it. So that was probably one of my favorite ones.
Awesome. That's great. Sweet. Well, thank you so much again for being part of our quarantine interview sessions, and enjoy, quiet time. I've been telling everybody to focus on the positive because pretty soon
Yes.
we'll be all really busy and stressed out again. So,
Yeah, exactly. That's very good advice. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
still. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. See you later,
Bye.
Vivian.